are lots of things that I respect about her. I think that she knows how to work the business like nobody I've ever seen before. And there's something about it I don't like. She's mean. I don't like that.
Cher might have been the goddess of pop, but she was also the queen of grudges. Not only was she opinionated with a razor-sharp tongue, she also wasn't afraid to use it. During her long career run, the pop icon has never failed to hide how she disdains certain artists in the industry. From calling out the biggest superstars to harboring long-lasting feuds, you won't believe who she hated most.
Last show I did was, I don't even know how long ago, the farewell tour. So it wasn't quite happening yet, it was starting to, but I noticed one night I was at the movies.
To understand her brutal feuds, you first have to understand her unprecedented reign as the undisputed queen of pop. The reign of the goddess. When you talk about music royalty, there is the current ruling class. And then there is Cher. Not only is she famous, but she's also a cultural icon and a walking pop historical figure. Her career as part of the folk rock duo Sonny and Cher began in the 1960s, giving us hits and television variety shows that defined an entire era. When that chapter closed, she didn't just fade away. She reinvented herself again and again, making waves in the Hollywood industry, which was successful, as seen from her Oscar-winning performance in Moonstruck. After that era, she returned back to music forever in the late 1990s by pioneering the use of auto-tune in her smash hit, Believe. Cher is one person who has seen it all, done it all, survived it all, and still was able to set a standard few could ever reach. This incredible longevity is exactly why Cher believes she has the right to judge the rest of the industry. By doing all the hard work and earning her place in the entertainment industry, she's endured grueling global tours that lasted years, constantly pushing her limits as a performer. For Cher, stardom is a prize earned through sweat, reinvention, and commitment. So when she sees younger stars who she feels are cutting corners or lacking the respect for the craft, her inner, tough-as-nails critic comes out blazing. That is where her unfiltered persona comes from. Cher is the ultimate anti-celebrity celebrity. While most stars are carefully managed and speak in prepared statements, Cher says exactly what is on her mind, whether it is in an interview or an unexpected 3 a.m. tweet. Her brutal honesty is what she does, and is also a major part of her brand that sets her apart as one of the realest and most outspoken celebrities alive. One thing about the goddess of pop is that even with all the glamour and high fashion, she has always seen herself as a working-class girl from El Centro, California. This is also one of the main reasons she never backs away from calling out spoiled brat behavior and entitlement she sometimes sees in Hollywood. Her critiques often come from a place of perceived lack of respect, talent, or work ethic in the next generation. Cher's decades of dominance set an impossible standard, and if you want to wear the crown, you have to be ready to work like she did. And when it comes to competition, no feud was more epic, more public, or more deeply rooted in the battle for the Queen of Pop crown than her decades-long Cold War with the one and only Madonna. How do two of the most powerful pop icons in music history end up hating each other's guts for over 30 years? Well, the rivalry started with a simple yet brutal comment in 1991 that blew the lid off pop culture forever. Their rivalry didn't start from just a simple disagreement over a song or a tour, as people would think. Well, it was far worse. Their rivalry was a decades-long one. And you know what the crazy part is? The whole thing blew up because of Cher's family. It all began in the early 1990s, starting after Madonna released her notorious documentary, Truth or Dare. Cher's fury was indeed ignited by a moment involving her ex-husband, Sonny Bono, in Truth or Dare. In the film, Madonna is seen backstage with her entourage when someone mentions Sonny Bono's name, who, at the time, was a Republican U.S. congressman. Madonna, covering her mouth with her hand, replies with a very brief, dismissive comment, "He's a white boy." This comment was widely interpreted as condescending or insulting, especially given Bono's career trajectory, and Cher took deep offense on his behalf. Cher's anger spilled over into a now infamous 1991 interview with CBS News. In the interview, she made some of her most quoted and harsh comments about Madonna, calling her a spoiled brat and a mean person, and also criticizing her talent and appearance in a backhanded way. And since then, it has always been shades after shades between the two icons. Cher, with her incredible stage stamina, has always seen Madonna as more of a brilliant marketer and a rebel. She also famously gave Madonna an ultimate backhanded compliment, saying she was smart but she's no singer. It didn't stop there. Things also got messy because of Cher's connection to actor Sean Penn, who was Madonna's ex-husband. Cher once said that after dating Penn, she saw Madonna's behavior up close and was completely turned off by what she called her spoiled brat attitude in private. Even though Cher claimed the rivalry was stupid, she never missed a chance to take a public jab, and the tension was so thick you could feel it when they were in the same room, just like when they were at the 1996 VMAs. This drama went on to continue as the age of social media became a thing. Years later, Cher continued to throw shade, but this time on Twitter, now X, after she made a comment suggesting Madonna needed a colonic for her birthday. However, things started to change after Cher took a break from the rivalry with Madonna. A couple of years later, she later admitted she actually likes Madonna now, giving her credit for staying on top and for always setting trends. Even if these two might never be best of friends, it's nice to see Cher finally acknowledging her rival's legacy. Even with Cher and Madonna's decades of rivalry coming to an end, her next rival was a king from the same era, and someone she also knew very well. Clashing with the king of pop. Cher's history with Michael Jackson goes way back. She knew him from his childhood, back when the Jackson 5 was tearing up the charts. She even had them on The Cher Show, where she performed alongside a young Michael. This long shared history is why her later comments about him were so much more upsetting and personal. As Michael went solo and became really popular, he made a lot of changes to his lifestyle, which people like Cher vocally disapproved of. Cher was one person who didn't hide how she felt about what Michael had become, and she was much more disappointed by what she saw as an extreme disconnect from reality. The two main targets of her criticism were his personal appearance and his parenting style. Cher was publicly vocal about Michael's decision to hide his children's faces with masks and veils, calling it nuts and unacceptable. She couldn't understand that level of privacy and separation, especially since she had grown up in the spotlight herself and was raising her own children as a famous mother. Cher's view was that she knew how to handle the spotlight while keeping her kids grounded, and she felt Michael's intense secrecy was going to do more harm than good to his children. Additionally, she didn't fail to make comments on his physical transformation. Cher herself has faced countless headlines about her own looks, but she was surprisingly expressive about Michael's many surgeries. During a 1996 press junket, she made it clear that Jackson freaked her out, and also said she wouldn't know him if she fell over him. She pointed out the fact that she wasn't interested in what he did to his face, but that she missed the person he used to be. Her feelings toward a lot of people were valid, as they believed the king of pop was going through some sort of identity crisis. Even though she was a strong critic of his new looks, the public understood she spoke from a place of empathy. Unlike her previous drama with Madonna, which had a recent, small resolution, she and Michael never got to talk their issues out and make a public appearance before his death in 2009. Unsurprisingly, Cher's comments were not well received by Michael's fiercely devoted fanbase at the time. They claimed she was intrusive and had no right to interfere in his private life or his decisions regarding his life and family. But for Cher, who once had a deep connection with Michael, his sudden transformation didn't sit well with her. However, after clashing with the veterans of the pop world, Cher turned her critical eye to the newest generation of stars. Her next targets were two younger female artists who, in her opinion, simply hadn't earned the right to share the stage with her. The Vegas Showdown. After dealing with the pop kings and queens of her generation, Cher turned her attention to the pop princesses who followed, starting with Jennifer Lopez. The initial, biggest shade happened during Cher's Living Proof farewell tour, way back in the mid-2000s. During that period, Cher was consistently on tour, giving audiences the ultimate show, and she wasn't about to let anyone think they could easily take her place. She reportedly used her stage time to challenge the younger stars, saying something along the lines of, "Follow this, you bitches." The comments were interpreted as direct, pointed shade at both J.Lo and Britney Spears, who were the young pop stars of the year, claiming they didn't have the guts to outshine her. At least, that was how the public interpreted it. Fast forward over a decade to 2017, and the rivalry flared up again. This time, it was in Las Vegas. By then, both Cher and J.Lo were holding down huge and successful residencies on the Strip. Cher made it known who the original diva of Sin City was in her famous 2017 interview with Entertainment Tonight, where she joked, saying, "Babe, I was doing Vegas while they were in rompers." Her statement comes after the interviewer asked whether Jennifer Lopez and Britney Spears gave her any advice on how to shut down the town since she had concerts that period. She also went further to name singers who she thought would inherit her title as Queen of Pop, and J.Lo and Britney's names were nowhere to be found. The critique was without a doubt a subtle jab at their different talents. Even though J.Lo is known globally as a world-class dancer and high-energy performer, Cher doesn't clearly find her interesting or worthy of being called a top pop artist. For Cher, the ability to sustain a long career and constantly reinvent oneself is the true pop icon threshold. She felt J.Lo, while successful, hadn't yet proven she had the power to be relevant compared to a legend like herself. J.Lo wasn't the only young star caught in that legendary shade. More than once, Britney Spears' name came up more than once where Jennifer's name was mentioned, and in some cases for different reasons. It'll be impossible not to mention the time also during Cher's Living Proof farewell tour, where she issued that famous challenge to both Britney and J.Lo to try and take her place. Fortunately, none of these pop princesses responded to her claims or subtle shades. But things changed as the years went by. The context of her comments completely changed, especially in light of the post-conservatorship context surrounding Spears. Interestingly, as the years went on, it seemed Cher grew a genuine soft spot for Britney. By 2020 and 2021, as the world began learning the truth about Britney's situation, Cher was one of the celebrities who stepped forward to show support and also to fight for her. She tweeted that Spears' family saw her only as a cash cow and demanded that someone independent should investigate her doctor and the medications she was on at the time. After Britney's shocking 2021 court testimony about her situation, Cher unleashed a series of strong responses. She declared that Spears was a prisoner and even drew comparisons to tragic Hollywood legends of the past, like Judy Garland and Mickey Rooney, who were infamously given substances to force them to overwork themselves. Cher, who also had a Vegas residency, didn't stop there. She flat out stated that everyone on the Strip knew something was terribly wrong with Spears' situation and that she was being constantly medicated just to get her on stage. She used her voice as a veteran to speak up against the dark side of show business. Cher's support for Britney was surprising, and it showed that she sometimes shows compassion for the art and the artists themselves. This transition from rival to protector was one of the greatest moments in celebrity feuds. The veterans of the pop world felt Cher's wrath, but another young star, known for her constant controversy, was next up on Cher's chopping block. This time, the criticism was immediate and brutal, aimed right at the performance itself. However, this particular star would also prompt a rare and genuine reversal from Cher, proving that sometimes even the goddess of pop can admit when she's gone too far, and that's exactly what happened after one disastrous awards show performance. A wrecking ball. The whole drama kicked off right after the infamous 2013 MTV Video Music Awards. Miley took the stage and gave a boundary-pushing performance, and Cher's reaction was instant and completely unfiltered. Now, remember, Cher sort of brought about the shock value with her outfits and stage shows, but she found Miley's attempt at twerking cheap and messy. Cher went straight for the jugular, saying Miley's body looked like hell, and adding that the whole performance just wasn't done well. The queen of theatrical spectacle judged Miley's performance as unpolished and simply lacking any artistic quality. Cher's disapproval, even though it was harsh, kind of felt protective, almost like it was coming from a place of concern. Knowing how female artists are usually objectified, Cher was only trying to caution her. But it seemed like her criticism and disapproval came off the wrong way. Things also took a sharp turn when Cher delivered the infamous comment stating that Miley looked terrible and suggested she needed to cover up and sing. Cher seemed genuinely worried that Miley was relying too much on shock that would eventually hurt her career. All these back-and-forth criticisms put Cher in a generational clash, where other old-school Hollywood legends wade into the discussion as they also publicly criticized Miley's rebellious new direction. Miley, who was fully in her defiant phase, largely responded with indifference, showing the huge difference in how the two generations handle fame and sexuality. However, the major plot twist in this feud is the fact that Cher, being human, actually regretted what she said. She later went onto Twitter and publicly expressed feeling a little ashamed for not supporting a fellow artist. She admitted she went too far with the personal comments, but she still managed to get the last word with a perfect, backhanded compliment. She called Miley brilliant because, at the end of the day, the performance was still being talked about everywhere. In Cher's mind, if your performance causes that much conversation, it's a weird kind of win for pop culture. We've seen Cher clash with contemporaries over rivalry and with younger stars over work ethic. But the final person on Cher's list wasn't a fellow musician. And the hatred wasn't rooted in stage presence, but in a personal and professional disrespect. This was a director with whom she had a famously toxic, long-running professional feud over one of the most important films of her career, leading to a public war that lasted decades. The Peter Bogdanovich vendetta. The feud started right after the premiere of the 1985 drama, Mask. This movie was a huge deal for Cher, as she poured her heart into playing the role of a mother who had a son with a rare disease. This movie was a real-life depiction of a boy who died at the age of 16 from craniodiaphyseal dysplasia, a genetic disorder. Her performance was praised everywhere, and even won her a major award at the Cannes Film Festival. So, this deep emotional investment is exactly why her clash with the director of the movie became so incredibly intense and personal. The main issue was because of an artistic clash. Bogdanovich was known as a classic auteur, which is a fancy word for a director who thinks his vision is the only vision. Cher, known for being honest and never holding back, immediately clashed with his arrogant and what she called controlling on-set behavior. The filming process was reportedly miserable for Cher, and she felt he was utterly disrespectful toward her as an artist. Cher's own memoir, Cher the Memoir, didn't hold back on her feelings toward the late director. She also went as far as describing him as arrogant and a pig, and recounted one incident where he completely screamed at her just because she dared to offer a simple idea about directing a scene. The feud went public and got super dramatic at the 1985 Cannes Film Festival. They ended up exchanging charges during the press conferences. The sheer contempt between the star and the director was clear, as they both sat 3 seats away from each other during the screening. Also, Bogdanovich didn't hold back on his words against Cher and Universal Studios. But the conflict wasn't just about their personalities, but about the art, too. A huge point of contention was the fight for the soundtrack. Cher passionately fought against Bogdanovich's musical choices, especially his decision to use Bob Seger instead of Bruce Springsteen's tracks, which Cher felt were essential to the movie's emotional core. She felt he damaged the final film, and, even worse, disrespected the memory of the real-life people the story was based on. Unlike her drama with Madonna, which eventually chilled out, the resentment toward Bogdanovich was deep and long-lasting. Cher's dislike for him lasted for decades, popping up in interviews long after the film came out. She held a fierce, long-lasting grudge because she felt he ruined what would have been a very smooth artistic experience. Now, to be fair, we have to look at Bogdanovich's side. He gave his own counterclaim, arguing that Cher was the most difficult actor he ever worked with, citing her deep distrust of men as the main problem. Regardless of who was right, this feud proves that Cher's legendary honesty isn't limited to the music industry. For someone who strikes hot, no one can escape her lightning-fast reaction to arrogance. We've seen her subtle shades, long-lasting feuds, and also her taking sides where and when necessary. But it all begs the bigger question. What exactly makes Cher so fearless in calling people out, whether they're the king of pop or a famous director? To understand that, we have to rewind the tape and look at the very beginnings of a career built on defiance. Born a rebel. Cher has gotten so comfortable with picking fights with directors and pop queens because fighting is all she has ever known. Her first major battleground was her partnership with Sonny Bono. The Sonny and Cher dynamic was complicated. Sonny was a master in the music business, and he practically taught her everything she knew. But he also was very controlling of her artistic choices. From the very start of her career in the 1960s, Cher had to fight just to be heard. This necessity to constantly stand up for her own voice became the foundation of her personality. She quickly learned that if she didn't fight for herself, no one else would. This fighting spirit moved from music into fashion. Cher became a fashion pioneer, using her clothes as an early form of rebellion against the conservative norms of the time. You could almost imagine those iconic barely there Bob Mackie gowns on television in the 1970s. They were shocking. She was pushing boundaries, using fashion to tell the world she didn't care about their rules. Cher's next major struggle was fighting the system itself. She and Sonny were huge on TV with the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour, but Cher was constantly going against network executives and record producers just to maintain creative control over her show and her music. They wanted her to look a certain way, and she kept rebelling and proving stubborn. This decade of battling corporate forces gave her the thick skin needed to call out anyone she felt was arrogant or controlling, like Peter Bogdanovich later on. The biggest challenge of her life was going solo against all the odds stacked against her. Leaving Sonny, both personally and professionally, was a massive gamble. Many people, especially in the music industry, thought she would fail without him, but Cher proved them all wrong, forging a completely independent path. One of the surprising moves she made was her unexpected transition to film. She fought hard for years to be taken seriously as an actress, enduring countless put-downs from Hollywood elitists. Her Oscar win for Moonstruck in 1988 was the ultimate revenge on everyone who had written her off. Finally, just when everyone thought she was done, she proved her resilience in the entertainment industry. She also made her way through the 90s recession as she came back on top with Believe. This monumental hit wasn't just a comeback. It was also Cher fighting ageism and sexism head-on in the pop industry. By proving that a woman over 50 could reinvent herself, she scored the biggest hit of her entire career. Because Cher built her legacy by going against conventional norms and fighting her way to the top. The fallout from her famous feuds is far more interesting than if a less iconic star were involved. The feuds were public, but their impact on Cher's career and the careers of her rivals is a story in itself. As it turns out, when Cher speaks, the whole world listens, and these celebrity clashes defined entire eras of gossip and pop culture. How the feuds defined an era. Just like the Madonna feud, Cher's attacks were pure press gold. They gave entertainment journalists exactly what they wanted, which was two powerful pop queens fighting over the throne. These feuds became iconic pop culture moments that perfectly defined the sassy celebrity journalism of the 1980s and 90s. Every comment or statement from Cher guaranteed a headline. Interestingly, Madonna's strategic silence usually worked in her favor. While Cher was loudly throwing shade, Madonna rarely responded directly, which made Cher the main voice or the primary architect of the entire rivalry. This dynamic actually forced the press to constantly expect Cher's next controversial quote. However, Cher's honesty was a double-edged sword. Sometimes her unfiltered comments backfired, leading to a shift in the public perception. Critics and younger fans sometimes accused her of being a bitter or out-of-touch veteran who was simply jealous of the new generation. But for her core fans, this honesty only made her known as one of the most honest and realist stars in Hollywood. Also, the dramatic feud with director Peter Bogdanovich had real-world consequences for the movie industry. The Mask fallout included a very public battle over the film's soundtrack, and all the chaos surrounding the set surely impacted the film's reception. The feud was so loud and long-lasting that it became a cautionary tale about star-director power struggles in Hollywood. On the flip side, when Cher criticized younger stars, their reactions were more striking. Miley's reaction to Cher's harsh VMA critique was surprisingly mature. Miley essentially viewed Cher's outrage as kind of a compliment, figuring that the fact Cher even cared enough to criticize her meant she was relevant. Ultimately, these public battles are part of the icon's burden. For Cher to maintain her title as the goddess of pop well into her 70s, she must constantly defend her position and the standards she set. These battles, whether against Madonna or J-Lo, were necessary moves in her long game to prove she's the ultimate survivor and the true keeper of the flame. Her critiques were not just gossip, they were declarations of war, ensuring she remained at the absolute center of the conversation. Cher had the authority to judge others and has still remained relevant even when so many others of her time have faded away. Looking past the feuds and focusing on her own incredible journey of survival shows a constant reinvention. Cher is the ultimate comeback queen and the one who constantly defied expectations. We've seen her throw shade, but we have to recognize that she has literally survived every trend and beat every unfair stereotype Hollywood could throw at her. When people wrote her off as a singer, she won an Oscar for Moonstruck. When they said she was too old for pop music in the 1990s, she scored the biggest hit of her life with Believe, pioneering a vocal effect that is still used today. And decades later, when Hollywood threw her a random role in Mamma Mia 2, she stole the whole show. This relentless ability to reinvent herself is why her critiques of relevance and longevity are well-earned. Her incredible inner strength, which fuels her critical eye, comes straight out of her personal struggles. She fought controlling men like Sonny Bono, endured intense public scrutiny over her relationships, and battled for her own artistic freedom constantly. All that fighting taught her to be completely fearless in the face of what it means to be a celebrity. This experience gives her a unique perspective on fame, including the complicated topic of appearance. Cher has always been open about her own plastic surgery, which has led to the evolution of the face. Even though her honesty has sometimes been viewed as hypocritical, especially when she critiques others, it actually gives her the unique authority to comment on the pressures of celebrity transformation. It only shows that she knows the game better than anyone. Even at 79, Cher is still touring, recording new music, and still has a lot on her mind as she continues to write her memoirs. While actively defying ageism, it proves that her critiques of fleeting success hold weight. For us, the verdict is clear. Cher's hatred is less about actual personal animosity and more about fiercely protecting the high standards she set for show business. She believes the stage deserves respect, work ethic, and real talent. This brings us to the icon's irony, which is that the most outrageous, controversial, and boundary-pushing star of her time became the ultimate judge of the next generation's controversy. She created the rules she is now enforcing. However, we have to acknowledge the entertaining value. For us, the audience, these feuds have provided decades of genuinely delicious gossip, funny soundbites, and amazing water-cooler moments. Cher understands that a diva who doesn't fight is a diva who gets forgotten. The bottom line is Cher's willingness to name her enemies is completely inseparable from her iconic status. You can't have the fearless, groundbreaking artist without the woman willing to tell the truth, no matter how harsh. Whether or not anyone accepts it, her shade is her legacy. Now, we turn the question over to you. What do you think? Was Cher right to call out these artists, or was it just diva behavior? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell on our channel so you never miss any of our uploads. Thanks for watching.